Because right now, there's a huge proportion of people who are sitting in jail who have not been convicted of a crime, but simply are not able to pay to bond themselves out on their own recognizance and basically be trusted to leave jail before their court hearings. So there are people who spend months in jail because they didn't have a small amount of money to pay for a bond, and that's something a district attorney can also use their influence to change.
Right, and just to touch on the bail reform as well, if you're sitting in jail for a $200 bail and you're experiencing homelessness, a bail bondsman's not going to want to touch that because there's no equity in it for that. You're going to be stuck on a cash on a $200 bond, and if you can't afford that, you're going to spend much longer time in the detention center. Well, at this point, you haven't even been sentenced, so you're serving time for a charge that may not even require jail time. It could be a minor violation that would be a citation.
But the answer is yes. You often do get charged just to be there, and especially eating. There's lots of things that they will just nickel and dime you while you sit in jail.
Sorry, I missed it.
So we're not gonna go through all of these, but another couple ones that I want to make sure we highlight. Juvenile justice, another place of massive discretion for the district attorney. They can decide whether or not our young people are subjected to the criminal justice system or not. There's a really perfect example. Do you want to explain actually a little bit about Shawnee's case, the short version?
Yeah, so Black Lives Matter 5280, a family came to us and said, our daughter has been going to court date after court date after court date for some trumped up charges at a school that DPS said there were no charges at all. But our district attorney continued to bring her to court month after month after month. They dropped all of the charges that were brought from the DPS case, and then they brought another charge because, again, their goal is to charge someone to the fullest extent of the law. So this 14-year-old kid, Shawnee, she was on house arrest. She had to get permission to go to church every Sunday, and she spent 6 months going to court, and this date being pushed off and pushed off and pushed off, and then she receives another charge that came out of nowhere. And the only reason we were able to fight that is because her grandma secretly reported a police officer saying she did nothing wrong. She did nothing wrong. If she didn't have that reporting, she would be in jail right now.
Right, and it's just a perfect example of Shawnee's case. The district, the DPS district school district had said that Shawnee had done nothing wrong and she was wrongfully arrested. Oh, it'll come out. The officer who was at the school had said that she had done nothing wrong, but it still continued to be in Mitch Morrissey, the district attorney's purview to say, well, we will just drop these charges then, since the school district and the police officer who was there that day both agree there's no reason to charge her, but he didn't. And this is exactly the sort of thing that why we need district attorneys who are accountable to our communities, who we can go to and explain that there have been mishaps, there have been mistakes, there have been misunderstandings that have led maybe to some of our young people being in the court system, and that we need to get them out. But they also can make lots of decisions about sending young people to rehabilitative programs, sending them through diversion programs, which we'll talk much more about. But there's lots of ways the district attorney can impact juvenile justice for the good, and we need a district attorney, we deserve a district attorney who can do that. While they're fixing that, one of the last things that we think is just crucial part of the district attorney race, and an issue that we need to pay attention to, is quite honestly the culture and pattern of violence inside of the district attorney, or inside of the police. Law enforcement have been hurting our community for far too long and getting off completely scot-free with facing no kinds of consequences for the injuries, the deaths that are caused at their hands, and that's something the district attorney can impact as well. Alex, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, well, and so before we dive into that, there's actually a slide that's it's more of a comprehensive breakdown. So we'll hold off just for a couple of minutes and just kind of transition a little bit. But the role, purpose, and influence of the district attorney, again, the district attorney speaks for the people. And so again, the district attorney speaks for the people. In criminal courts, prosecutes individuals who are being charged with crime. Again, this is an elected official, so the idea there in theory would be that the people that they're prosecuting, and they're prosecuting these people to keep us, the general public, safe. The DA is tasked to indict and prosecute people for allegedly committing crimes. You're just tasked with this. You don't have to have a guarantee of prosecution. And this will be important to reflect on later on as we talk about law enforcement. But cases get dismissed all the time. Charges are brought on people and cases get thrown out. People are found not guilty. So the fact that you have to approach this with a guaranteed conviction is not true. Responsible for serving the interest of all members of the community and enforcing the laws without prejudice, bias, or political purpose. You could ask a district attorney if they have biases, and they may tell you that's false. Patterns and practices of the criminal justice system suggest otherwise. DAs can influence state policy using their bully pulpit. So for folks who don't know what that means, being the highest paid state elected official, being the head district attorney, you have an opinion, you have an influence. District Attorney Mitch Morrissey is not part of the Colorado District Attorney Council, which we'll talk about later, but he goes up to the state capitol all the time and lobbies as Mitch Morrissey, as the head DA. He has an influence and an opinion that prosecutors around the state legislatures listen to. So the fact that maybe you are speaking on something that's outside of your particular scope of work, but your influence can carry weight throughout this entire reform process of the criminal justice system. So the DA also provides services to victims of crime and provide funding for all direct service providers who are survivors and victims. Part of the problem with that is, for example, if you suffer a case of law enforcement abuse and the district attorney does not press charges, it's not considered a crime. So there's not going to be resources available for you. There aren't going to be resources available for people who decide not to file a police report. Part of getting the finances that are available in that sector is filing a police report. If police beat you up, the chances of you actually filing a police report that will be sustained against the police and then accepted by the district attorney are incredibly slim. Not only that, but the language around what crime even looks like we've talked about a little bit already, reframing the language of crime. People who are experiencing homelessness are not criminals. People who are suffering from addiction are not criminals. People who are victimized by violent conditions in their day-to-day environment should not necessarily be viewed as criminals. So changing the language around how district attorneys view criminality and crime survivors and people who survive victimization. So the DA's office can also, and does, lobby legislatures. This is what we were briefly touching, for the development or elimination of crimes, punishments, laws, etc. through Code Act, the Colorado District Attorney Council. And actually, out of the 22 judicial districts in Colorado, Denver's the only district, or we're the only judicial district 2, that's not part of the council. There's a variety of explanations as to why we're not part of it. District attorneys will tell you it's because of financial reasons, but perhaps there are other reasons. But the council does lobby on behalf of, again, creating new laws, creating new sentences, creating new punishments. But they can also eliminate laws and go in there with the idea that we want to reform. We don't want to create more punishment. And actually, just to give you a quick example, we recently had bills going under the Capitol that would allow juveniles to be sentenced without the possibility, life without the possibility of parole. Mitch Morrissey went up there as an individual and lobbied in favor of that bill, even though it's been deemed unconstitutional by the state constitution to give juveniles life without parole. But he went up there and used his bully pulpit, his influence, his voice, his individualism to lobby on behalf of that bill. And those are things that district attorneys can do.
Just out of curiosity, do you guys know if he's invested in any of the programs, like the prisons? I mean, I know judges, a lot of prisons is motivated by criminalization, but a lot of judges and lawyers are owning DUI classes with the company or they own the house arrest program, and Mitch is like he's invested in.
That's not something that I have specific knowledge of. No, it's not. We don't know. But you're right. That happens all the time. And
Does anyone know DA Morrissey's investment?
does anyone know his stock profile? We would. Yeah, you should totally let us know
Yeah,
if you
no,
know
we
much
can make
more
a
about
note
where he
to
invests. Yeah. But there was another question over here, Ariel. You still have it. Uh-huh. Well,
Can you tell me how it's possible that cases where the state has given families settlements of money, but the officers were not charged?
yes. So those cases where so just to clarify, the services to victims of crime is about like if I run up and like beat Alex in the street, he's eligible for those kinds of funds. They're called victim assistance.
Victim assistance and law enforcement, bail fund.
Yeah, so there's a big pot of money that we use to help people who have survived crimes. But what happens when someone like Alex, who was victimized by the police, wins a settlement against them? It's not that he did not win a criminal case. He won a civil case, and so that's the difference because the cops who beat Alex within an inch of his life were cleared of criminal wrongdoing, but the state said that they did in fact violate his civil rights, and so he was entitled to a settlement based on as compensation for the violation of his rights, but they did not break a law in violating his rights, is what they say.
Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Okay, so no, but this is important because, okay, so this is what a courtroom looks like. In case you've never seen a courtroom, and it actually is a close replica of how Denver is set up. So just a quick example, jury box, prosecution, defense, bailiff, in our case we have deputy sheriff, judge, court clerk, etc. But one thing that's important to understand is over 90% of cases don't even go to trial anymore. They're pleading out, and people are actually not experiencing what it's like to go through a jury trial.
This one's
Sure, so I'll read this to you. You can see it. About 50% of people incarcerated in Denver jails are pre-trial detainees who are unable to afford bond. Many of those held in jail before they are convicted will be sentenced to probation and released from custody after they are convicted. So a lot of these people are sitting in jail, again, unable to afford to get out of jail. They haven't been convicted of a crime yet. And then when it finally comes around, their court date finally comes around. My brother's court date usually is like 3 or 4 or 5 months later. But if he can't afford to get out, then he sits in jail for that whole time, and then they say, you've got probation. But I've served five months in jail already. So just think, I mean, we're criminalizing and punishing people before they even receive a conviction.
right. So this slide is about the DA's decision-making power, and this is possibly one of the most important things to understand, because this is where we need to hold the district attorney accountable, is for how they use their prosecutorial discretion. So prosecutorial discretion is the example that we lifted up with Shawnee's case. The district attorney is a prosecutor. He's the person who comes in and says, on behalf of this, the people of Colorado, we are prosecuting Seisha Ramirez with such and such violations. And they can use their decision making, they can use their discretion. They can decide kind of on their own, use their judgment to decide whether or not to charge someone with a crime in many cases. In some cases, they have no choice but to charge someone with a crime. But a lot of the time, they can make a decision. So just like we were lifting up with Shawnee, the young woman who was basically arrested stemming from a dress code violation, was arrested in her school, the DA used his prosecutorial discretion not to say, this is silly and ridiculous for this young woman to be facing the criminal